Good evening. Welcome to the Canby City Council regular meeting for November 7th, 2018. Would you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance? Dear Lord, I thank you so much for the leaders gathered up here at the dais. Thank you for the leaders that were elected yesterday, both here and across our great country. Please grant me and those newly elected leaders with wisdom, courage, and strength of character. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For the TV viewing audience, I apologize for our late start. Was helping my son with math homework and lost track of my time, so I apologize for this late start, and to the council, apologize for that. First up this evening is the Library Community Survey Results presentation. We have Irene and friends presenting that to us today. Hi Irene, how are you?
Not until the screen. There you go.
Okay, so in front of you, you should all have a copy of the survey. And yes, great. And I think one of the things we wanted to say right at the top is this is our first look. So it's very high level. We haven't done any analysis at this point. It's just kind of what is the survey saying just on its face value, and we wanted to share that with you before we spent some time doing a deeper dive.
Okay, well, the survey that we did ran from August 20th through September 21st, and it was available in both English and Spanish. There were 20 questions, and we used SurveyMonkey to run it. We had 523 respondents, 492 responded to the survey in English, and 31 responded to the survey in Spanish. And then there were also 734 additional comments. And one of the things we wanted just to mention too is that the people that responded in Spanish were those that solely spoke Spanish. They're people that were Hispanic that probably responded to the English survey. The distribution points, we did it in print and online. We had it in the library print form, as you probably saw that in the lobby. We had it at Cutsforth, the Adult Center, the Swim Center, the Canby Center, the CAT office, and at Hope Village. We also had it on the library's website, the city's website, the library computers. Link downloaded it, so as soon as you logged on to one of our computers, that you could take the survey. We also had it publicized it on the library's Facebook page. The Chamber of Commerce sent the link out, which was great for them to do that.
And there was lots of publicity. It was in the Herald. We had it on the Lobby Monitor. It was in the online newsletter, the library website, Facebook, and Twitter. So we tried to hit everything we could. But again, just a caveat, to keep it in perspective, this is our first customer survey the library's done, at least in recent memory. And so we have a baseline, but we don't have any trend lines yet. But this is a really important first step. So it does not, like I said, provide a trend line, but it does give us some valuable information that really merits further analysis. And of course, I'll turn that over to you.
There you go. We wanted to get people's zip codes. So as you can see, most of the respondents were from Canby. There were 433. And then there was a number of them from other areas in Clackamas County, or, the surrounding link libraries, basically. One of the things just to keep in perspective is that our library card holders that we have is 11,842, which is about 49% of our Canby service population, which is 23,984. Our Canby service population that we serve is 23,984. We have 11,842 registered users in as can-be users.
So that was just to put it in perspective of the 543.
So it's really only like 3% that we really got a response from.
So, of course, the big question is, how often do you leave the library satisfied? And I'm losing my voice. 93% said always or usually. And of course, the ones we really want to take a look at and do a stare and compare certainly is the ones that are not leaving the library satisfied, or only sometimes or rarely. And this gives you some of the interesting behind-the-scenes data about why weren't you happy the last time, or how was your service during your last visit to the library. And so we're getting information, as you can see here, about issues maybe with staff is busy, or not at the service desk, or did not speak my language. So that's some of the stuff that we need to take a closer look at.
Okay. The other question we have is, do you have a Canby Public Library card? And 91% of the respondents said they did. So that gave us a good view that were the library users that were responding to the survey. We also asked how often do they use the Canby Public Library. It was interesting that the highest one was a couple times a month, at least once a week was pretty high. So it really, again, gives us a good range of how often people come into the building.
One of the demographics that we got out of the survey, next one, is age distribution. And I think this one is really important because we know, based on the school district survey, that the demographics are changing in terms of age of the population. And so this is one where we definitely want to dig down and say, by age level, who's satisfied, who's not, what are the services they're looking for that they're not getting, what are the services that they use most often, that kind of thing. So that'll help us do some planning. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I have you move the microphone closer to both of you to speak into it? Thanks. Just want to make sure the audience here and the viewing audience can hear you. Thank you.
Next thing we took a look at is the educational level. We could see the fairly high, a lot of the people for college and college graduates that use the library. So.
And then last, this is just our next steps. We want to do further analysis of the survey's responses. What are the differences between the responders who are usually or always satisfied and those who are not? What do the comments tell us about the drivers of dissatisfaction? With all of those comments, we've got a lot of information, and we ought to be able to glean a lot from that. How do the responses differ by age group? I mentioned that. And I think there's more ways we can look at it as well. And also, there's other surveys that are happening now, as some of you are aware of. We've had the retail market analysis. I believe there was survey information in there. We have the demographic study from the school district. I've not been able to get my hands on that, but I know it's out there somewhere. We've got bi-monthly reports. Other library data. I mean, Irene's doing a great job of collecting every bit of data she can squeeze out of that library. And so we ought to be able to actually do some stare and compare and do some cross-analysis. And then last, we need to go back and look at the strategic plan. Based on what we learn, and ask ourselves as a board, are we on the right track? So behind this is a lot of the detailed data. So you have answers to all the 20 questions. Any questions from you?
So this was really just an opportunity to set a baseline, just where's the community's and library users' thoughts, hopes, and just kind of general use of the library, how are things going? And then, so action steps for you, the library board, and for you, Irene, like what are you anticipating in terms of conversation, timelines on action steps?
Some of the things is, what do the patrons want? Where we should, put our priorities into. A lot of times a lot of it still is going to books, which is a good thing, not necessarily DVDs, which is really good to hear too. But I think it just really helps us know where to focus a lot of programming. That was another big thing, is to see where to put our efforts into, and basically, especially with the teen programming, there's a slide on there that talks about what the teens are looking for, what adults are looking for. So it really helps us really trying to focus to see where we can, what kind of programs we need to offer was a big thing. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, very much so. Thank you.
And we've got some questions in here too about somewhere, they're buried in the appendix, of what services would you like to see the library provide, or programs would you like to see the library provide that's not happening now? So that's a good indicator.
You said there were 700 plus comments made. Are you still combing through those, or have you done that already? And if, like, what are the general trends in those comments that are coming back?
We've gone through all the comments and sorted them out. I think if I had to pick one of the biggest things that, generally a lot of the comments are, you're doing a great job. It's very short little one-word comments. But if I had to pick out one general issue that's going on is the computer area. The fact that the children's computers and the teen computers are near the adult computers. So we're looking at ways, perhaps maybe in January, we're talking about flipping the collection a little bit and putting the DVDs in the front of the library, which will give us also an opportunity possibly to move some of the computers into the adult area. There's a catalog computer in there that has the internet. We may be able to move a bank of computers over into the adult area that would be quieter for people that would prefer to have a quieter area to use them. We're also looking at, with Link, Oregon City is one of the guinea pigs, I guess you want to say, for this. They have Chromebooks that they're having. They're fairly cheap. Link is loading them, so if you, it'll have everything on there. If you leave the library, it's completely wiped clean, so no one can use them, but allow people to use the computers in other areas of the library and not just in that one area. The other big thing is that to address this also, we were able to get mobile print recently. You probably saw the publicity for that, is that now you can print from your mobile phone or from home. You can send it right to the library's printer and pick it up. It stays in the queue for 24 hours. So that was a lot of issues of being on the computer because you had to be able to use those computers to print from, and no longer is that the case. So that may help a little bit also.
I always find these kinds of surveys very interesting and fascinating as to some of the answering behind the scenes. So just for example, the one question is, how would you describe the library's atmosphere? And the one was fun and exciting. And 29% of respondents found it not very fun and exciting. Now, I will say, I don't generally, in all of my years, my young 45 years of life, have necessarily thought of maybe going to the library for fun and excitement, or maybe my thoughts of fun and exciting have changed. But the reason I pick on that one is because I'm curious as to, because with the numbers behind each of those is, to me, is like, who responded in what fashion? Like, going back, like looking at the number of, youth and teens that did the survey versus those that were, 50 plus, did they, find that the library was not as fun as exciting versus, it's just an interesting, like I look at that and I don't particularly go, well, there's an action item for us to make the library more fun and exciting, but what goes into the numbers, behind the numbers, because there's a couple other ones I didn't really call out. I just thought that one was really interesting, and I know Councilor Parker also likes to geek out over data points as well, and so it's always an interesting piece. So this will
so
keep
much more we can pull from it.
Oh,
we just
this
go
is
and
like,
go and go. And,
yeah, weeks of pouring over
exactly.
things for that. Sorry, I've kind of monopolized. It's just very interesting. Yes, Councilor Parker.
Oh, you knew that I was
Yes. I'm surprised you waited this long.
Carol, I'm going to be sending you the school district
thank you.
demographics that I got from Autumn Foster there. The one thing that I would be interested in, you had a slide earlier of the demographics, and also right there, that's one of them.
Right.
But it would be interesting to overlay on top of that what our actual age demographics are, because it is not. We are skewed. We are more gray than that. It's interesting that it is skewed that way. Also, the education levels, and again, we're stuck with 2010 census survey information, but those look higher. So those are the only two things that I would mention.
I think it's great that you guys are already problem solving. Like you're taking the, you're seeing that, oh, we need to make it quieter for computer users, and you're already taking steps. Like that's fantastic. I think like let's make something happen. That's cool. And also the fact that young people did respond in such numbers is kind of delightful, because a lot of times it certainly is the older ones that respond in mass. So your marketing, I think your social media and whatnot, the fact that you cast the net so widely, you reached a different group. So cool. Well done. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions for?
This is great. It's a good story.
Good stuff.
Great start. Thank you both
Thank you.
very, very much. Next on the agenda is a presentation from the Fido Pet Food Bank.
Who doesn't love animals?
Thank you for having me.
Evening, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm going to put a couple of goodies in. My name is Nancy Martin, and I was invited by Councilor Hensley. She's had the good fortune to come visit us at Fido Pet Food Bank. We are a 501c3 nonprofit in Clackamas County. And what we do is we fill a void in a social problem. We provide pet food for people who otherwise could potentially not, due to several different circumstances. We have several different programs. We do seniors, we do homeless, we do veterans, we do domestic violence, we do emergency response. And we have a pet food bank once a month on the third Saturday of the month, which is attended by Proof of Need. And we had 119 families this month. About 4,000 pounds of pet food. We do 500,000 meals per year for Clackamas County residents' pets. We do 190,000 pet meals for seniors' pets in Clackamas County alone. It's a pretty big program. So I brought for you a little visual. For example, the Canby Senior Center. What we do for seniors is we deliver every other week. It is alongside the Meals on Wheels, which is great. It's an additional wellness check. What we do is we have when the Meals on Wheels coordinator goes to sign up a resident, they ask them if they need pet food. The research for Meals on Wheels is that potentially as many as 70% of the recipients feed the food to their pets because they're unable to do so themselves, which is really a very disheartening number. And that is, of course, not a positive thing for the pet or the owner as far as nutritional issues. So what we do is we do it by the weight of the pet, and then we have small bags of food. We have 2 pounds and 5 pounds. We have cat and dog. We also send treats. So every other week, we do 7,200 senior pet meals in Clackamas County delivered. That's our senior program. I have specific information here, which we'll do handouts. Clackamas County, but also specific for Canby. We also have a donation barrel in Nature's Pet. I have the numbers here about how much we get from them. Our pet food bank is a resource that is forward-thinking and out of the box, and really, in reality, it's not really about the pets. It's really a social services program. But the nice thing that for our county, which of course includes Canby, is this is the only county in the entire country that has these combination of programs available the way they are. There are a few food banks. There's some Animals program, but there's no county in the entire country that does everything the way we do it. We are not an emergency pet food bank. We have been feeding people's pets for years. The original Meals on Wheels portion of it, the Animals Association, we started in 2004, and then we had in 2008 a small pet food bank. And then when I came onto the board and became the president, we added the Veterans Program in 2014. And then we added the emergency response when the fire started in the gorge. That's one thing that people don't traditionally think about, is that pets are involved. And during the fire, there were 400 animals that were in schizophrenia at Stevenson County Fairgrounds that we evac'd. People don't even realize it's a huge number. And we fed those for 7 weeks. It was a huge response. People don't realize. Horses were here at Canby. Large animals were here. We had one dog here. But But the Stevenson County Fairgrounds, it was huge, which included large animals. Luckily, we were able to procure food for large animals, which is not normally in our wheelhouse. But to this day, we go once a quarter to bring food up to Stevenson to support those people because they were so devastated. And what's interesting is that when you talk about these numbers, it's kind of mind-boggling. We have 34 people that live in Canby that came to our food bank just this month, 34 families. And we have 167 pets being fed. It's kind of an amazing.
Well, this is wonderful.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I became aware of this last year at the National Main Street Conference is that for the first time, city officials across the country really are taking a look at elements that help with the mental health of their communities. We've had some situation in the past year with suicides, and I think all of us on the council have become more aware of the mental health issues that are out there in our community, ways that our parks can bring people together. And the big takeaway from the last Main Street Conference was that loneliness and isolation are the new cancer. And it's taking the lives of 2 people a day by their own hands in Oregon. And to those people who would say, well, if you can't afford to feed an animal, you shouldn't have one, I think that they're overlooking the mental health aspects for people that are old and shut in and that sort of thing.
Especially veterans, too.
And veterans. So to take this to the 30,000-foot level, this isn't just about feeding animals, as you point out. This is about providing a service that is actually a mental health service. So, yay you.
Thank you. It's interesting. I had a veteran this week. We have a lot of walk-ins, and it's difficult. So he had a problem, lost his home. He's homeless, living in his truck with his dog. A combat veteran from Iraq. But all he wanted was dog food. Didn't even care. All he wanted was dog food. You just want, oh God. And so, I really, it's just really so moving that all he wanted was dog food. Didn't even care that had no place to live. Just wanted to feed his dog. And thank God we're on the 211, so he was able to, and from, social services. I mean, it's just amazing what you're saying. This is saving this guy's life. Yeah, so, any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nancy, thank you for coming. I was honored to, my girlfriend actually texted me. We were supposed to have lunch, and she's like, I'm actually at this appointment, but I think you need to get over here. So I went, and I'm really glad that she did that, because I had no idea that your programs existed, and the combination of programs that you provide is amazing. And I just felt like people needed to know that you are there and that you're doing what you do, and ways that they can help, whether it's donating their time on food bank days, whether it's donating food to you. I just felt like it really needed to be out there that you're doing what you do, because it is such a great service. So I thank you for all that you do.
Since you've been there, we got refrigeration.
Oh, excellent.
I know.
Yes, and
now we have
they even have
refrigerated
little
pet food.
cat toys. I mean, they have everything that you need that you can go. And it's once
it's the third Saturday of every month is our
Saturday of
food
the
bank.
month. You can go to their facility, to the food bank,
Right.
and they have nominal priced toys and all kinds of things. And it is just
Crates, leashes, collars, beds.
yes,
Everything. Yeah.
anything
absolutely
you need
everything.
for a pet, and if you can't afford it at Petco prices, then you can go and you can get
Right.
what you need there. And it's just such a great program, and I wanted to make sure that you were kind of presenting it to
Thank you.
everyone.
Well,
so that we
veterans
knew
can come get
everything.
anything they want for free. Otherwise, it's $2.
Yeah, it's nearly free.
Yeah, it's $2 to feed your pet for the month, so I think that's pretty reasonable.
It is,
So,
it
Any
is.
questions from anybody?
Thank you for coming. I'm a people lover, but I'm also really, really an animal lover. And everyone here knows that my dog is my favorite kid. But can you help? So if people want to find you, can you give us some information on air and in front of everyone about where we can find you online, where you are in person, ways to contact you?
Right, we are
Thank you.
located at 14186 First Street in Oregon City, and we are Fido Pet Food Bank on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And we are www.largecapitalsfidoanimeals.org on our website. Our food bank is the third Saturday every month. We're open every Wednesday from 9 to noon and by appointment every other time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, and I got the goodies.
Okay, great.
Great. We'll move into communications. Anything, Mr. Robinson?
Yes, I would like to acknowledge, and it is also in your packet, a letter of appreciation to the mayor and council for your support of the Canby Public Library Board's recommendation to oppose the requested approval of the master intergovernmental agreement that the county had come and presented to you here last month.
Yes, that was I think, I see Irene there, still here on that, and it was a very nice letter, and appreciate the library board writing that letter. We were the only city to vote no to support the proposal, and so, and it, I think I got an earful from a couple of the commissioners as to, you know, why we were the lone standout, and you know, so I told them our reasons, and I think it was very clear. And so sometimes you got to step forward and say, no, we're just not going to be behind this particular one. So please extend our thank yous to the board for the letter. That was very nice of them to do that. Anything else, sir? Okay, perfect. Right now, it's our first opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. So if you are wishing to address the council on anything that's a non-agenda item, please fill out a yellow card like these and make sure that our city recorder gets it recorded and over to me, and we'll let you have 3 minutes to address us. I think everything that I have here is an agenda item. Is that correct? I've got Kathleen Pauley. That's an agenda for the traffic piece. And then everyone else seems to be an agenda items that's here. So I have an incoming card. Mr. Pfeiffer Robinson, you're up, sir. Would you like to come take the microphone? It's on. Please speak directly into it and let us know.
Okay, hi. So I'll try to be brief. So the elections just happened, right? Congratulations to 3 of you, and I wanted to thank everyone for their service to the community. So just reviewing Canby's values, specifically what I want to speak to relates to the honesty, ethics, and accountability regarding public confidence and trust, and also livability and an inclusive community and exceptional service. The goals it relates to are community, how we can improve the quality of life of citizens. So I just wanted to say, and I know some of the things I'm going to say relate not specifically to local, well, I believe they do relate to local issues, but they might also connect with broader themes. So I believe justice is not partisan. Justice is equivalent to equal rights. And I'm disappointed with the division, dysfunction, and polarization we see in national politics. I'm a millennial, and I think a lot of people in my generation are feeling bitter or cynical or apathetic about politics. I'm encouraged to see higher turnout in the midterms, though. So just drawing attention to recent events, the murders of Jews at synagogue in Squirrel Hill, Pittsburgh, and some other awful events that have drawn attention. All these things happen in local places. They could happen anywhere. I'm from Colorado, where Columbine happened. Also, there's Park Lane, Charlottesville in Texas. There were shootings at churches recently, and I think of Sandy Hook as one of the most awful recent events. So Jeff Sessions was asked to resign. Our president called the media enemy of the people, and Mohammed bin Salman and Jair Bolsonaro seem to be threatening, and Rodrigo Duterte represent populism that I think is dangerous around the world. I'm an historian. And when you get patriotism, or call it nationalism, combined with corruption, what do you get? I think it's important people speak out against white supremacism. And I want to end with inspiring words from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We must choose love because hate is too much of a burden to bear. So I want to thank you all for keeping Canby safe, and I think we can celebrate the successes of not having awful events like this happen here. And thank you for speaking out for civil liberties.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. All right, we'll move into mayor's business. First order of mayor's business, I'd like Shannon, I know it's not burrito anymore, is it all E? All E, okay. If you'd like to come up, I've asked her to come in and tell us about the lovely project she put together downtown, and yeah, and results of, I don't know if everyone knows the results of the event, so
Okay.
I will turn it over to you for a couple of moments.
Okay. Just hold up your hand if I talk too long.
Okay.
And I'll be brief. So in case you're wondering who I am, Shannon Lee. I work at Hot Rod DreamWorks. I am Jack Brito's daughter, the owner of Hot Rod DreamWorks, so now you can kind of pinpoint where I'm from. I decided to put a lot of work on my plate and do a scarecrow contest this last October. So if you guys, most of you I'm sure know about the Scarecrow Contest. I started out just as something that I thought was simple, fun, something to get the community involved, hopefully bringing people from other towns into Canby just to see them, which I actually heard that happened. So that's very exciting. I started out first getting sponsors so we could do cash prizes because everybody loves money. So I just want to give a shout out to these businesses that actually did that. And in fact, I had to turn some businesses away because I didn't need as many sponsors as I was getting, and I didn't want to just keep cash for myself. That's so I had to tell them no next year. So our sponsors was Millar's Point S, Canby Ford, Clint Coleman, LPL Financial, Canby Science and Graphics, Canby Builders, the Canby Herald, and Farmers Agent Christina here in town. I want to pinpoint exactly, so the Canby Herald actually did, for their sponsorship, they did free advertising for it, which is great because I actually had people read the paper, and that's how they found out about it, because I was only doing it through social media and flyers. So it was really great that they did that. Canby Signs and Graphics created the signs at a very low cost, and that's how they did the sponsorship. Everybody else was cash. So I want to thank them for sponsoring, and then I'm just going to go over, so I started this project hoping to get maybe 10 scarecrows, and I thought that was pushing it, okay? Started out with 10, ended up with 19, had 24 entries. Wish I could have kept the 24 and not say I had 19, but some people had to back out for emergency reasons. So I'm hoping for next year we do this again. I'm hoping for at least 25, since the first year was so much more than I could have hoped for. I got a lot of positive feedback. People that I didn't even know knew who I was coming up to me saying, "Hey, I love your scarecrows." I was like, "Thank you. I had no idea you even knew who I was." Which is kind of scary, actually. Always have to be right? Always have to be on your good behavior and in a good mood. You can never just run into the grocery store in your pajamas. So I want to first tell you guys who all created a scarecrow, and then I'll tell you the winners last. So first off, Countryside Living did the Maryland Scarecrow. Right?
And they brought an umbrella for her. That was so
Actually, That was me.
Oh, okay. Well, good
No,
job.
they asked me, they were like, we're going to put up an umbrella. I was like, I have a white one that would be perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. I thought
So I'm only going to take credit for that part. I mean, they created it, but I have to have a little credit because that one was a really cool one. I want to be part of it. Next, the Canby Fire Department created the fire chief. Better Homes and Gardens created Betty Garden. Canby Builders Supply created, I'm putting the old name Carl, but he was the Canby Builders man. Sorry, the name got changed. Canby Signs and Graphics did Sigmund the Scary. The UPS store. Okay, I created some of the names for people, and I'm trying to remember what name. I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. But it was I think I called him the Mr. Brown, but he was the UPS store. Habitat for Humanity created the Restore Crow. And by the way, all of these scarecrows are still on our website if you wanted to go and look through them. We haven't taken them down yet. My Donor Cycle and Surrogacy created Suro Mom June. Let's see. Pacific Residential Mortgage created The Banker. Jump In or Canby Grove created Happy Camper. Integrated Eye Care created Dr. Cornea and the Minion, which was stolen, so we need to figure out a way. They even cut the zip ties.
Stolen.
Yeah, someone stole the Minion. That was, I mean, in one sense, we kind of made a joke that Grooze stole the Minion, But unfortunately, that happened, so we're working on ways to prevent that in the future. If you got any suggestions, love to hear them. The Rest Doctor did Miss Daisy, the Dancing Lady. The Canby Garden Club, Flora Scares a Lot. Canby Herald did Mr. Newsman. I created their name. I think that was what I called it. And then the Canby Adult Center was Happy Go Lucky. I think I created that. Canby Ace Hardware created Mike and Curtis. And if you actually know who Mike and Curtis are at Ace Hardware, the resemblance was uncanny. They did a great job. Remax did, they changed the name. I have the old name, I'm sorry, Monster Max. Retro Revival was Retro Steampunk. And then the last one was Canby Smiles. They did Smiles a Lot, I think is the name. Okay, and then the winners. I'm sorry, I know I'm dragging on. Third place was Betty Garden, Better Homes and Garden. Second place was Canby Fire Department, which, by the way, they donated their winnings to Providence for a machine, and I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what the machine was, but they donated their prize, which is really, really cool. And then first place was Countryside Living, Maryland's Scarecrow. We also did a honorable mention. We did it to Integrated Eye Center for their Minion being stolen, and they had a lot of votes. So that's what we did. We hope to do it again next year. There's a few things I will be changing, but it'll make it smoother and better. It won't make it too big or crazy, but.
The first year of doing things like that are always the most challenging because you're laying the groundwork and you find out what works, what doesn't, what needs to be changed, and what's different. So, no, I'm sure next year it will be huge because the feedback and the comments were amazing. It really brought a lot of energy to downtown, and so thank you for doing that, Councilor Parker.
Well, years ago, we talked about not wanting the city government to have to do all of the promotions for downtown. And we've seen Slice of Summer be self-initiated. We also saw Movies in the Park be self-initiated. And now this, which really was extraordinary. I sent an email to you talking about how I saw a mother and her two daughters going from scarecrow to scarecrow, taking selfies in front of each one of them. And I think it really is an object lesson. We talk about what is it going to take to bring people downtown. And it takes things for people to see and experience. And you pointed that out, that we had people moving up and down the streets because of this. So, remarkable work.
Thank you very much. That means a lot.
Any other comments?
I just wanted to thank you. In fact, I saw you with the Suburban in the trailer, cleaning them all up that after. And so just all the work that you put into this, it's such a great addition to the downtown and our community. And like Councilor Parker said, just something for people to experience. It was a lot of fun. And I just wanted to thank you for all that you did to organize and bring it together. And so good job.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, and stay tuned. We might do something for Christmas. I've had a lot of people asking me what I'm doing next. So,
Christmas trees could be fun.
so I opened a can of worms, so thank you.
Before you leave.
Yes.
I have a certificate of appreciation to present to you. This certificate is awarded to Shannon Ali in recognition of your successful efforts in organizing and creating tremendous engagement in our community this fall with the Scarecrow Contest. So,
Thank you.
ulterior motive to get you here.
I was just like honored that you asked me. I was like, wow, I feel very, very honored that you even asked me to come talk.
Photo out for the paper for you.
Oh, great, right after teaching a fitness class. I look lovely, right?
Thank you, Mayor, for doing that.
Thank you for the idea, sir. I appreciate that. Other mayor business, just a couple of things here. I'd like to take a moment and just say congratulations to Councilor Height and Councilor Parker on your re-elections to the City Council. Thank you for stepping back up and rerunning. And I also want to thank and say congratulations to Sean Varwig, who will be joining us in January as our next City Councilor. So congratulations to the three of you. I also want to thank those of you that once again voted for me to continue to be your mayor. I take this position very seriously, and I look forward to what we as a city will accomplish in the coming years. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Before the end of the year, I'll be setting up appointments with each of the councilors to discuss liaison positions as well as personal goals and thoughts on the year ahead and into the future. We've been implementing and working through some great plans and visions that have been laid out for Canby by previous mayors and councils. And in the first couple months of 2019, the council and I will hold our annual retreat to review the year that was and look ahead. My objective that I've been having discussions about already and we are already working towards is that we, the council and the city, are looking ahead. We need to look ahead to where Canby is going to be going 30 years from now and what that's going to look like in the year 2050. And so I'm looking forward to the work that we have laid out ahead of us. So there's a lot to do. Other events this past couple of weeks, the Civic Block did a visioning meeting. So that was just on the 22nd, the Hanlon Group who built the Dahlia building and that whole block held a kind of just a visioning piece, invited the community out to come and talk about the Civic Block and kind of what do we see for it. And there was tons of ideas put out there, everything from ice cream shops and restaurants and all sorts of things, not just for that block, but just for the downtown in general, which then spurred into a small business or new business entrepreneurial kind of boot camp, which was held this past weekend, where they brought in people that help with business plans, social media, and it wrapped up with a pitch. So if you were there and you could pitch your business idea to some investors that were potentially there, and sounds like a couple of the ideas may be gaining some real serious traction. So all in all, it was a really great course of events. I think will really bring some pieces to bear. So it was really great. Canby, there was attended the Canby and City Tourism meeting. So there was a discussion on the strategic plan for improving water-based tourism in Oregon's Mount Hood territory. So it's a small little study that was done, but really basically the highlights of it were it called out for Canby specifically to look at Malala River State Park, Heb Park, and the Fish Eddy Park area for areas of development that we have access to that are in the city limits for river development. And the whole study, and Councilor Spoon, I'm sure can elaborate as well, because she attended, I think, the big piece of it, but that the gentleman that did the study really just camped along the Willamette River for a couple years,
No, it was about a 9-month study he did, but he floated county line to county line and camped along the way. And then because there's so little camping, which is the preferred method for a lot of boat enthusiasts, paddlers, whatnot, he actually had to get permission from cities to camp in some places because there's such a shortage of campgrounds. So it was really interesting to hear him talk about that process for sure. He even what do they call it? Jettied his boat. He carried his boat on his back around Willamette Falls, like portage. Yes, which apparently is very difficult, I imagine.
It's a long trip.
Rather heavy.
They're tall cliffs.
Yes, it's not just a little in and out. You got to go all the way around.
Yeah, it's the carrying of the boat as well as all your gear that you bring with you, and that's not a small trek. So, yeah, so it was just timely to have this come out in terms of conversation, because that's something that we have been already having some dialogue about here on the council in terms of what kinds of things can we be looking at along the river and in terms of development. I mean, just the amenities in terms of that this is calling out from a camping tourism standpoint, but even just development along the river in general. So I thought it was pretty timely. On the heels of that, I'd like to propose to the council providing some park advisory board direction. So since we've launched and moved ahead with the Parks Master Plan request and the proposal's gone out, I'd like to have the advisory board start looking into some potential recommendations to the council on specific park development pieces that I am confident are going to be in the master plan, and that the advisory board has made recommendations on a few of these things, but I'd really like to have these items start maybe getting looked at and having some moving forward on a couple of things. So the pieces that based on their recommendations and pieces that we've talked about, and like I said, I think are going to be in the master planning piece. So the piece about the splash pad, so begin looking at potential locations, and then bring back to the council maybe 3 or 4 possible locations or location recommendations with pros and cons for each one. Review that strategic waterway plan and see if there's pieces that we can look at and start working on with the state from Malala River aspects, grants, potential improvements, etc. Begin discussion and planning for building the dog park. We have the location and what it would consist of. So is it a matter of what would it look like to maintain it and start that planning process? The logging trail bridge enhancements, that's a big one. I know that we've got big plans already for that, and I think that that's something that we can begin working on, and then to discuss and recommend enhancements and amenities to existing parks. So a couple months ago, we had that conversation about where the perception was on maintenance of the parks, and it wasn't so much that we felt that there was lacking in maintenance, or the advisory board was that just some of the amenities and a lot of the parks are just dated, need to be updated or improved. And so maybe starting to take a look at what those might look like at some of the parks and start creating that kind of to-do list, and kind of maybe it's a jump start ahead of the master plan, but I think it's work that can be worked on and starting to gain some traction on. So I want your input on that, if these are pieces that are worthwhile taking back to the advisory board to start working on, or hold off until the master plan is rolling and done. I'm open. I just want to, we've got momentum going on these pieces, and I want to see that continue, and I want to see, as Councilor Parker has had conversation with me and shared, just seeing that across a number of our committees and advisory boards to start creating some energy and get things moving in that regard. So, Sarah, you popped your hand up for comment.
Yeah, I really like the idea of doing this. I think it gives some agency to the committee in terms of strategically thinking about how we're going to implement parts of the master plan that we know are going to exist, and I think that that's really forward thinking. But in conjunction with that, we're biting at the chomp here to actually do something with parks, and I do think that the master plan's an important piece, but I think that having them do this really sets us up to actually take action as soon as we can at the first opportunity. And I know that's important to me, it's important to a lot of council, it's important to the community. And then in addition to that, you and I had spoken about the confluence between the water tourism piece and maybe seeing if they can work with Oregon State Park System to see if we can find some way to add some camping, improve some enhancements there so that we have water access. And I think getting the Parks Committee involved in all of that is an important step in actually taking good forward steps for the community, the livability and economic development in relation to parks. So I'm all for it.
And this, like I said, these are just, the list of items here are just items that, some of them are pieces that we've been talking about for years, like the splash pad, the dog park, other amenity pieces to our parks. We've had the logging trail bridge plan, I think was one of the first things that we did, almost 8 years ago now, 9 years ago. So, and this is a start list, I suppose, of things that can be worked on. I'm sure the advisory board may come back with maybe a different recommendation, which I'm open to as well. Like I said, these are kind of for them to take a look at. I just wanted to keep things moving.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm so excited about this. Like, that's what I've been wanting. Parks Master Plan, okay, great, put it out there, but in the short term, what can we start designing? Mm-hmm. And I would say, and I think the board will be they'll feel well respected and heard by us too, like, hey, we really want you to take some action now. Because I think at least one of them has resigned recently for lack of activity, like, we're not doing anything, I want off of this board. So let's let them, like, use their, wits and do something. So yeah, and maybe just their top 2 priorities that they proposed to us a few months ago, maybe start with that, if those are still their priorities, and go there. But get anything moving, I say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Parker?
Thank you. I did share a note with you. Kind of what Tracy was saying is that we don't want our committees saying, there's nothing going on here, I'm going to stay home. So let's find some meaningful work that is going to help us in our policy development. Now, Councilor Haidt and I may have a different approach to which things we start first. Where I could use some help from the Parks Committee is taking a look at some things that haven't been looked at before. Our waterfront access. That's been something that has really been absent in our parks planning for a number of years. Upgrades to existing facilities that we already had. Nothing in any of the minutes to the Parks Committee meetings that I've looked at for the last 2 years has ever discussed, for example, are there ways that changes, big or small, can improve our most used park, Waite Park? Mm-hmm. Equally, are there safety and lighting improvements that could be made to the logging road trail? Some big 30,000-foot ideas that, when the master plan does come back, is still going to be able to fit into some of these things. But let me go back to the beginning, which is thank you. That yes, we have a system of advisory committees, and we need to make sure that there are meaningful tasks that coordinate with things that we're going to need to be doing.
No, and your note to me today, this morning, was timely, and Rick and I shared this with him about a month ago, and said, hey, here's what I'm thinking, and some of it was like, well, we're starting the master plan process, let's wait and see. So part of me was going through this back and forth of like, okay, we've started this process, and at the same time, to Councilor Haidt's point, and having been now the liaison to the Park Advisory Board, but getting some feedback from the advisory board. Rick and I met with the chair for the advisory board last week, and just was like, there are things that we have on the books, have had on the books. We know that they're going to pop up again. Splash pad, that's been a theme. Barry nodding his head affirmatively, that's been a big ask for a long time. So what aspects of that can we start looking at? And that's where, to me, it's like, well, let's start having the dialogue and get the recommendation of potential locations. Yeah,
good.
Where that would work. I mean, that at least gives us we know that it's a want. It's just a matter of having the conversation of what could be potential locations for us to entertain, look at costs, look at upkeep, because that's the long-term piece that we've got to be aware of as we've done this is it's one thing to put them into place, it's another thing to maintain them. And that's the piece that, we got to make sure that is, those I's are dotted and T's are crossed in that piece. So I hope that we can start having this dialogue with a number of our other committees as well. I think what Irene's doing with the library board is a great example that, of starting to look at what some of that stuff down the road. As we look at where Canby's going to be 30 years from now, what do we want it to look like? That's the 30,000 foot. And I told the park advisory board, no idea is too crazy. I mean, we can always scale it. It's easy to scale back. It's harder to scale up sometimes. So, okay, I will
Leadership.
bring these to the board and see what they have to say about it. Safe routes to school. The county was here in town last week, 2 weeks ago. So I participated in the audit of Trost Elementary and the safe routes to school improvements that might be looked at. So the county representatives were here and with grants and whatnot from House Bill 2017 that was passed, the big transportation bill. Now it's been a year, almost a year and a half. There's more funds available through that House bill to look at safe routes to school, and so the county was out, and Trost was their initial conversation piece. But as we were looking at it and having conversation, we looped in. We encouraged them to look at Baker Prairie as well, because they share much of the same walking, biking, travel routes as Trost does. So they're looking at that piece, but they're going to be putting together some recommendations for funding for amenities and improvements around Trost and Baker Prairie. So with the school district, so that'll be coming soon.
It's sidewalks specifically, right?
Sidewalks, signage, crosswalks,
Okay.
et cetera.
Cool.
Yes.
Is there a reason that that was the school they selected? I mean, I think that all of our schools have particular issues, but I'm thinking of Lee, which doesn't have sidewalks at all for a portion of it, and
Sure.
it's walking along Ivy. I was just wondering how Trost became.
So I don't know if I have an answer to why Trost was picked now versus something, one of the other schools. Their goal is to eventually touch all of the schools within Clackamas County. And again, that's a big apple to take a bite out of. The pieces with Lee some of that, or a majority of that will be addressed when South Ivy goes through its, that is happening in the 1920, yeah, so we're going to start seeing that. I think.
But it was delayed, right? Because I was like, I feel like we've been saying it's.
We have been
Yes.
saying that.
It was 18.
It was delayed.
Yeah, it was going to be part of the 17-18 budget cycle with ODOT, and then it got delayed for funding reasons and IGAs, I think.
Yeah, and the county was supposed to be out in October and November initiating the right-of-way acquisition process, which is typically about a year long to complete the right-of-way acquisition. Once they have obtained the right-of-way, then the engineering design is already underway on the project. We do have the intergovernmental agreement in place, and so all of the city has its share of the cost of the project already budgeted, so we're ready to go, and it's just a matter of getting all the parties working in the same direction, and as soon as we acquire the property, we should be moving forward well.
So you feel like forward progress this time? Forward progress has happened?
Forward progress.
Awesome, thank you.
Not
Sorry,
backwards.
I just wanted to get it.
No, it's a great question. So, Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, so the last meeting, We had last week, which is a twist of events. I get to have their meeting first before ours. Two big pieces of conversation. Well, there was three. The biggest one was the Transportation Futures Study. So we had representatives from Washington County share with us they basically did a transportation futures study. So it basically was a multi-year kind of study through Washington County, initially instigated by Hillsborough, about all the transportation pieces within Washington County. And so it was an entire study looking at the entire county in terms of growth projections, housing, population growth, job growth, and travel patterns of, almost everybody that they could get a hold of within Washington County. And so Clackamas County was looking at, that was one of the items that came up out of the retreat that we did, was looking at, okay, we need to look at a bigger, where are we going to be transportation need-wise 20 years down the road? And so the conversation began with this future study and hearing what Washington County did, how they went about it, et cetera. So that was a big bulk of the meeting. But then we expanded it to have the dialogue. We just felt that Clackamas County for too many years has been third fiddle to Washington County and Multnomah County. And so there was some dialogue of trying to partner with Metro, and so a couple of us from the smaller cities said, no, enough's enough. We need to have Clackamas County take the lead on this, because we've been playing, third fiddle, like I said.
Washington County always takes our money.
Yeah, well, and Clackamas County lets them, in all honesty.
And they do.
They were like, okay, well, we'll get the next round. Well, the next round then goes to Washington County. It's like Washington County, Multnomah, Washington County, Multnomah. All right, Clackamas, here's $1,000. Yeah, right. And so it's kind of that point where we're like, enough is enough on that. The other piece that was big was the vehicle registration fee conversation is still ongoing. There are a number of community meetings coming up. If you are interested in giving the Board of County Commissioners some thoughts on it, the next one is Tuesday, November 13th. From 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and that'll be at the Harmony campus for Clackamas Community College up there in Clackamas. November 19th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. There'll be one at the Molalla Public Library. Monday the 26th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. That'll happen at the Rose Villa in Oak Grove. And then final one will be Tuesday, November 27th from 6 to 7:30 at Resort at the Mountain there in Welch's. And then, of course, you can talk to the Board of County Commissioners at their meetings if you want to give them any feedback on it. Again, they are going to be wanting an official position letter from each of the cities in Clackamas County. And I think the meeting that was discussed, I was not here, but I just wanted to just reiterate, is this council in support of the Board of County Commissioners moving forward with the vehicle registration fee? Because it sounds like it's not, they themselves, the board will be making that decision here probably either before the end of the year or the first part of next calendar year. So my understanding from the dialogue was that the council is, as long as certain things are met in terms of dollars are shared and that we're addressing county roads within the city first and things like, is that still holding true to? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as there's something in it for Canby.
No, yeah, for sure.
As long as we get a piece of the pie.
Well, we won't play second or third fiddle, I'll say that. I want to give a big Halloween thank you to downtown Canby. The businesses, I think that was the largest turnout for Halloween in downtown. So thank you to all the downtown businesses, city staff, chamber, everyone that came out for it. It was a lot of fun. The parade thinned out very quickly because I think the children got waylaid by the visions of candy filling their trick-or-treat bags. And then those of you may be familiar, there's the Tofty Farms neighborhood in South Canby. And so they apparently become a very big destination point at Halloween. And so some of the friends of mine that live in that neighborhood talked about the 6 or 7 Costco bag-sized bags of candy that they go through at Halloween. But I thought it was great that somebody took the time and ordered up a gigantic "Thank you, Tofty Farms" sign and put it at one of the entrances. It was like one of those
Yard cards.
yes, thank you. Yard Cards is the business, and but they put a big thank you in the front of Tofty Farms, and I thought that was pretty great. And I thank Tofty Farms neighborhood for creating I mean, they go all out for the holidays there in that neighborhood. And I know you have been privy to the craziness that is Halloween, but
it's $100 night.
Yeah,
Really
so.
easy.
Wow. It shows you what good neighborhood association leadership will do.
So again, I just thank you for, and just all of Canby for, I didn't hear of many incidents from the chief regarding Halloween night, and it seemed like everything was well maintained and everyone behaved themselves that evening. Finally, I just want to draw attention this weekend. There's a great Veterans Day event being held on Sunday, the 11th, at the Vietnam Memorial. It starts at 10:30. There'll be some speakers and just taking time to thank our veterans and remember them. And then that'll be followed by a barbecue lunch afterwards. So mark your calendars. The Veterans Day observance is on Monday, but the event is on Sunday, the 11th. So mark your calendars for that.
And you said at 10:30?
It starts at 10:30.
At the Vietnam Memorial.
Yeah.
And the lunch is at the Legion.
Thank you. Lunch is at the Legion. So that concludes my long-winded report, and we'll start with Councilor Parker for liaison reports.
Thank you, Mayor. The Bike Committee met last Tuesday, and they participated in the safety audit down at Trost, and I thought that was really a neat piece of participation for them. I like the fact that they're getting boots on the ground, so to speak, and taking a look at walking paths and that sort of thing. And it kind of, the meeting kind of prompted my note to the mayor, because they're sort of looking for a reason to examine things, and so I think they might be able to benefit from us brainstorming of saying, you know, we'd like you to look at possible bike routes between cities or connecting routes between our different bike paths and that sort of thing. So it was kind of a short meeting, wasn't a lot on the agenda, and sort of stimulated a discussion about what we can do to help our advisory boards get their hands on things that have some meaning. Meanwhile, our Historic Landmark Board doesn't seem to have a problem finding things to do. I had to write this down because it's a little complex. They did a pilot project called Where Do We Live? And it's an exercise that they're going to roll out perhaps to some other organizations, venues in our city. And it uses the county's online map system to get the property tax ID. And they use the info search for the 19th century U.S. General Land Office records, which house the 1850 survey maps and the land patent information, donation land. And they agreed that this might be a fun way to engage some of Canby's newer residents on how this area was originally platted out. And so this was kind of an exercise that the Historic Landmark Committee engaged in, kind of test drove it, and maybe they'll have an opportunity at the library some night or some other venues to engage in this. I'm not sure it'll quite have the cachet of Cards Against Humanity, but the idea is to have a social experience exploring what this place was. In terms of the bike committee running into both Thanksgiving and Christmas during its next two meetings, they decided to have a bike committee meeting on December 11th, and I'd like my counselors and future counselors maybe to help me out, because I'm on December 11th, I'm actually going to be in Spain, so I won't be able to attend this particular meeting. And for the venue of this, it is going to be the kind of the sports club meeting area of the backstop there inside the dining area. I don't know if that has a particular name, but it's all the citizens and all of us are welcome to drop in, and I think it would be kind of neat to drop in and say hi. And that's going to be between 6:30 and 7:30 on December 11th, the Bike Pedestrian Committee, sort of their holiday meeting, as it were. And then finally, if you want to get dirty, there's an opportunity coming up November 17th at 10 a.m. across from Fred Meyer on 99. Bring your shovels, and we're going to get into the dirt, probably mud, and plant some more bulbs and plants and beautify 99. So that's November 19th, across from Fred Meyer. Probably park there in the Fred Meyer parking lot, and then walk across the street.
It's the 17th, right?
November 17th. What did I say?
You said
17th first time and 19th second time, so I just wanted to clarify.
It's the 17th, Saturday.
November 17th, Saturday at 10 a.m. See you there.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, sir. Councilor Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't attend C4, so thank you for covering that very well. My daughter was returning from Israel that day, so I was not able to attend. And traffic safety doesn't meet until this coming Friday. So as my liaison report goes, I just have a couple of announcements. Although I did go to the Cub grand opening, that was fun. And I'm sure Tim will elaborate more on that. And the downtown visioning, so I wanted to thank the Hanlon Group for putting that together. But Canby Ferry, the Friends of the Canby Ferry has posted this, and I just want everybody to know, because I know that this is the talk of the town in some areas of town anyway. The Canby Ferry meeting, the next one, an open house and community input meeting, will be Tuesday, January 15th at 6 p.m. at the Canby Foursquare Church. And I'll announce it again before then, because that's a ways away, but I just wanted to get people to put that on their calendar. And another reminder is this coming Monday, November 12th, right here in the library, in the Willamette room, the big room there, 6:30 p.m. is the 1-hour training on kind of like the winter blues kind of a thing, and signs of depression and how we can help our community members. We wanted to put this together before the holidays, because this time of the day and this time of the year can really have an uptick in suicidal tendencies and things, and so we really want to kind of get in front of that and have our community be aware of signs and signals and how we can maybe help. So we're doing that training. The Suicide Task Force is hosting it, if you will, but it's the NAMI, the group that's going to be doing the training. It's just 1 hour right here in the library, 6:30 on Monday the 12th. It is bilingual and it's free to the public, so I hope you all attend. That's all I have.
And that was the 12th at 6:30.
12th at 6:30 right here.
And then the Canby Ferry conversation.
Tuesday, January 15th, 6 p.m., Canby Foursquare.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. Council President Dale.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, I attended the Cub Open House. Canby Utility Board was very pleased to have an open house and have everybody come in. Attendance exceeded their expectations and the expectations of the hamburgers as well. So their apologies that those towards the end wound up with just hot dogs, but it was a great showing and big crowd. Mayor did a fantastic job with his welcoming speech.
It was fun.
It was fun. And so they're nicely set up there to help continue serving Canby through the future. Likewise, attended the Dahlia Business Visioning meeting. Well attended. It was good. And one last reminder, I know the council's already received email, but we'll see you next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. for Budget Committee meeting. So it'll be our quarterly briefing.
Perfect.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Counselor Wright.
Okay, great. So in terms of the library board, just a couple little additions to Irene's report. So I wanted to say that the Friends of the Library have paid for the teen room. They have more coming, more in store. They want to add, I'm not exactly sure what else, but they've put in a laptop bar. They've put some cool signage. So peek in the window or take a look if you'd like. It's becoming more well-used, and they're quite excited about that. The November 13th is the Veterans Day program at the library. It's called Remembering Our Heroes. It's at 6:30 p.m. And it's presented by, I think he's a local Canby guy. It's Ken Buckles, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And he is the founder and executive director of Remembering Our Heroes. There's more information in the library flyer that comes out every month, but that's pretty cool that he'll be presenting there. And there's also, end of November, the 27th, there's a holiday swag making event at 6:30 p.m. Apparently you have to pre-register, but there's a lot of cool activities, like usual, programming-wise, happening at the library. And then lastly, they saw like more than 1,000 little kids in costume on Halloween night, and it was pretty cool. I think it was definitely a record number that came through the library, so that was good PR for the librarians to reach out like that, and so I wanted to thank them for handling all those kids. I'm sure it was a good time. And that's about all I got. Yeah.
Thank you. Counselor Spoon.
Why, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. Also attended the Dahlia Visioning meeting. It was fantastic. It was nice to see so many people engaged, and I heard that the people who participated in the boot camp just really did a fantastic job. So I'm hoping to see some of them come downtown with the business soon. And then after that was the Southwest Neighborhood Association meeting, which the mayor attended for the last portion. And Jackie Jones is going to stay on as chair moving forward. And it was just the fire department came and talked about the bond, or the capital bond that was on yesterday's in yesterday's election. And then we just talked a lot of issues, and I wanted to just thank you for coming and talk about, it started as a Southwest Neighborhood Association meeting, and then it kind of became a general Canby and answer period, and it was really helpful to have you there to field some of the questions I wasn't expert at, so thank you for that. And also Halloween, fantastic. We had so much fun. It was my first year handing out candy, and we just had a blast. It was fun as kids, so if you came, thank you for bringing your kids and engaging with us. And then finally, CTV5, when our city came in a couple weeks ago and talked, we got a lot of questions, and the board got a lot of questions about CTV5. So I just wanted to give an update. I met with the chair today, the mayor and I did, and it sounds like, just so you know, her and the chair got back in touch, and it sounds like working towards getting her in there to do some additional programming, and also just that used CTV5 before, the model of it is changing a little bit. So I think there's been a little bit of confusion about how CTV5 can be utilized by the community at this particular point in time. Right now they're still going through some restructuring, but CTV is available for some of the services. The model's changing a little bit in that people will no longer be able to check out equipment and take it out of the facility and use it for individual projects that aren't related to CTV5 or not intended to be aired on the TV station or whatever. So the model's changing. So if you would like to participate or engage in CTV5 or get trained on their equipment or learn how to do any of the work with the media there, definitely reach out to CTV5 online, either via the email on their Facebook page or their website, and they're working towards bringing citizens back in to get more programming and more content. So I know that there was a little bit of confusion about how it had changed, because the model and the usage model is going to be a little bit different than it used to be, but they're available and they're still a great resource. And so if you're interested, you can contact me or contact CTV. I'd be happy to get you in touch with them if that's something you'd like to do. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Spoon. Appreciate that. We'll move into the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the October 3rd, 2018 City Council regular meeting, the October 17th, 2018, and the reappointment of John Savory to the Planning Commission for a term to end on December 31st, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda. That includes adopting the minutes of the October 3rd, 2018 City Council regular meeting, the October 17th, 2018 City Council regular meeting, and the reappointment of John Savory to the Planning Commission for a term to end on December 31st, 2021. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0. Moving into resolutions and ordinances. Kim?
The first item we have is ordinance 1496. This is before you for second reading. Excuse me. This is the condensed version of the title of the ordinance. It's proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby of 9.99 acres, including 9.69 acres of real property and approximately 0.30 acres of adjacent North Pine Street right-of-way, amending the zoning and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the city of Canby.
Yes, as you may remember, this is an item that you heard at your last council meeting. The property is located on North Pine Street, just immediately south of Territorial Road. It sits on the west side of the road and is going to be a subject of a very nice planned development at some point in the future.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move we adopt ordinance number 1496, an ordinance proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 9.99 acres, including 9.69 acres of real property described as tax lot 3100, 3200, and 3201 of portion of southeast quarter, section 28T, 3SR1E, WM, tax map 31E28DD, and approximately 0.3 acres of adjacent North Pine Street right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5-acre, RRFF 5, to city low-density residential, R1, for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve ordinance number 1496. An ordinance proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 9.99 acres, including 9.69 acres of real property described as tax lots 3100, 3200, and 3201 of portion of southeast quarter, section 28, T3S R1E, WM, tax map 31E28DD, and approximately 0.30 acres of adjacent North Pine Street right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5 acres, RRFF 5, to city low-density residential, R1, for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits. Any comments or discussion? No? Great. Roll call vote.
Councillor Parker?
Aye.
Councillor Hensley?
Aye.
Councillor Dale?
Aye.
Councillor Height?
Aye.
Councillor Spoon?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next item we have is ordinance 1497. This is amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 10.04, City Traffic Code.
We've got Jennifer Klein to present.
As Jennifer comes forward, perhaps I'll give you a brief introduction of the topic. We apparently have quite a bit of interest today. I will note that tonight's conversation is really limited to propose changes to our municipal code, specifically relating to definitions of what in fact prohibited trucks are, what a local delivery means, what a truck means, and what a truck route means. The purpose, the underlying purpose and intent in making these recommended changes to Chapter 10.04 is to provide additional clarity to our law enforcement officers when they are enforcing the no truck ban on certain roads that are not designated as truck routes.
Thank you, Rick. So just to give you a little history of why we're implementing the changes to the traffic code. I don't know if you guys know, I sit on the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, and as I've been there throughout the last couple of months, it's been brought to our attention that several trucks travel up and down Southeast 13th Avenue, which is not technically designated a truck route anymore since the construction of Sequoia Avenue. So if you look at how Southeast 13th Avenue, how traffic moves up and down it, and what the demographic is around Southeast 13th Avenue, there's schools and homes. And so moving forward in the meetings, we agreed that this route does not really function as a truck route anymore with the construction of Sequoia Avenue. Another piece of this is, are you handing out the map, Rick?
Yeah, he's handing out the TSP.
Yeah,
map.
the TSP map does show, after the construction of Sequoia Avenue, that this section is eliminated from truck use. So I did some consulting with Clackamas County to see how they address this issue on some of their local access streets, and they recommended a specific sign to use. In discussions with traffic engineer up there, Joe Merrick, he indicated that in order to enforce this, that he recommended some changes, or to make sure that we had something in our code that specifically identified what a truck was and what a restricted route is and what a truck route is. So I didn't really want to put the cart before the horse and hang up the signs, and if somebody was to question why all of a sudden, and can you do this? And so we specifically identified what a truck is in conjunction with the state ordinance. And I can't remember offhand what that is, but so basically it's a gross vehicle weight of a commercial vehicle that is restricted from this section of the roadway, and unless they're actually using it for local access. So.
Yeah, and as Jennifer did a wonderful job describing this, I might add just a couple more details. This is a matter that was brought before the Traffic Safety Commission several months ago, and staff had historically thought that that area of 13th Avenue between Sequoia and South Ivy Street was a designated truck route. As we began to study and research a question that was raised by a resident in that area, we learned not only was it not a designated truck route in that area, but that it had never been a designated truck route either in the existing system or the preferred system in our adopted transportation system plan, which put us in something of a tailspin as we had a different viewed this as differently until the question came from the resident in the neighborhood. After doing our due diligence and research, Jennifer did a wonderful job communicating and coordinating and collaborating, and in partnership with the county, it worked up a method to simplify the enforcement of infractions. What you have before you in the changes to the ordinance doesn't do anything or say anything relative to Southeast 13th Avenue. However, I do know that this was the trigger that raised the issue to the level that we brought it before you this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 1497, an ordinance amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 10.04, City Traffic Code, to come up for second reading on December 5th, 2018.
Second.
I think we have discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
That's why we have discussion.
So motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Height to approve ordinance 1497, amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 10.04, the City Traffic Code, to come up for second reading on December 5th, 2018. Discussion. Questions?
Yeah, a few questions.
Yes, and then I've got
Some
comments as well.
testimony.
Yes.
Jennifer, my recollection from the transportation system plan is that Southeast 13th is designated an arterial.
I believe so. It may be a minor arterial, however. There's a designation difference between the two.
So You know, just to cut to the chase, Southeast 13th is going to be the hinge on which this churns tonight. That's the pain point. Are we looking at restricting Southeast 13th further than how the TSP classifies it?
No. No. We're not restricting it any further than what the TSP classifies it as. We're just stating that it's not a truck route. So when you look historically on what a truck route is and what a truck route is not, the truck routes are designated for connectivity between the businesses and the movements that they need to make in and out and around the communities and to the local freeways. And so you want to detour them from streets that are basically a local access or that feel like a local access street. So residential areas, school zone areas. And we actually have in our plan designated truck routes that still access the industrial areas that they need to get to. So typically, I know what you're saying, typically arterial routes are considered more of a truck access, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to reconcile is how do we, it sounds like we effectively want to say no trucks on Southeast 13th.
Unless they need it for local access, meaning that the business fronts Southeast 13th.
Okay, and does state law allow us to do that on a street that's classified as an arterial?
Perhaps I could help.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's, in Chapter 227 of the ORSs, there's a requirement that if you're going to establish a truck route, and if what our administrator is saying is that it's never been established, it would require having a public hearing and public input to actually establish one. So if what he's saying is correct, then if we've never had a public hearing, it isn't a truck route.
Yeah, my recollection is that it definitely is not back when council dealt with this in 2010.
Yeah, and it is not based on this map, and I'm looking for the specific street designation, but it is not designated as an arterial. It looks like it probably is a neighborhood collector, but is not classified as a major roadway, so would not be I don't believe will be classified as an arterial when I can find the right exhibit here.
Okay, but it might be a collector.
Yeah, I would. My guess is that it's the neighborhood collector, and I have to verify that.
Yeah, it's been about 8 years since the council wrestled with that. I remember that. I remember that it was definitely not a truck route.
The functional classification is now set as, and I was wrong about that, as an arterial. I just found that.
It is an arterial?
That section, yes.
Okay.
But it is not a designated truck route pursuant to our transportation system plan.
So I'm just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page before we go into the public testimony. The idea here is that we're not changing the TSP. We're not adding a restriction that isn't already there. But what it would do is prohibit truck traffic from using Southeast 13th as a cut through from South Sequoia, getting over to Southwest Ivy to go catch, Southwest 13th to go catch Bird Parkway and the light down there to head down 99 to the south. Yeah,
Interestingly, and this is both in the current and the preferred solution in our TSP, the area. So all of Sequoia is designated as a current or future truck route. 13th from Sequoia to the east is designated as a future truck route.
Yeah.
And 13th from South Ivy to the west is designated as a future truck route. So there's a clear indication that there is not an intent in the traffic system plan, the transportation system plan, to designate that one section. And I do need to provide one additional clarification. The proposed ordinance change that is before you today has absolutely nothing to do with the designation of this particular roadway as a truck route or as not a truck route. The proposed change in the ordinance is really for the intent of clarifying and making making simpler the definitions so that if an enforcement action is taken, we have clearly defined what an infraction would look like, and our law enforcement officers and our courts would have the justification to proceed. Our legal counsel will probably tell you that we technically have that because we're covered the overarching laws that govern us are ORS laws, the Oregon state laws, but that for ease of understanding and implementation and enforcement, all we're trying to do is provide clarity by establishing a specific designation, which is consistent with the definition in state law.
So hypothetically speaking, it could apply just as well to, say, North Holly, or, for instance, the lower end of South Pine between Township and Fourth, other places that tend to have truck issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it is true, there's an enforcement and definitions in ORS 810 as well as 811. And so those are actually incorporated if you look at how it's written as in the paragraph before some of these changes in the definition section. We've incorporated those already. So it's kind of double covers. And it actually announces to people that not only are we following state law, but we have now an ordinance that our city will recognize the same definition. So,
how is the enforcement looking now? I mean, the enforcement does exist if a truck egregiously goes down a non-truck route.
Yeah.
If they're caught, okay.
it's utilizing ORS, Oregon Revised Statute 810 and 811 has provisions for both definitions and then enforcement.
And by the way, the difference between preferred and existing, the preferred solution simply means long-term as we grow as a city, or what's the difference?
Right, when certain conditions are met as we grow. In this particular case, the trigger was probably the construction of the overpass over the railroad tracks on Sequoia that connected Sequoia to 13th.
And so for trucks wanting to go southbound on 99E, say to Woodburn, Salem, Hubbard, our truck routes say that out of the industrial park area or Sequoia access, you need to proceed to 99E.
You need to proceed
and
to
take it through
99E.
town, not cut through on Southeast 13th.
That was the intent of the crafters of the transportation system plan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
So then, in terms of, so if I'm looking at the maps that you passed out, Rick, 7.2A, where it shows that Sequoia is not in and all these alternative routes drawn in compared to 7-2C. So 13th was allowed to have truck traffic go down it until we did improvements?
No, it wasn't. As a matter of fact, if you look at 13A, it doesn't have Sequoia joined to 13th at all. And so, and that's in recognition of the fact that the overpass crossing the railroad tracks hadn't been envisioned or built at the time. So that was what was, at the time, that was the existing system, which anticipated neither a future truck route going eastbound on 13th, nor in either iteration did it anticipate a truck route going westbound on 13th from Sequoia.
Do we have any idea how many trucks travel down 13th out of the industrial park now?
We just have existing traffic counts in our current TSP. I'd have to look them up, and
No idea how many trucks.
I don't have any current data for today, 2018.
Okay.
We do have current data for Sequoia, if that's what you're
No, I'm just more
inquiring.
concerned about that stretch there. As I'm looking at the 2C map, there's a lot of still yet to be developed ins and outs of the industrial park, and that the easternly, if I'm saying that correctly, route of Sequoia connecting into 13th as it goes to Malino. Right now, no semi, in their, I don't care how good of a driver they are, they're not going to take that route to go to Malino out that back into the,
You mean down Sequoia and then turn left to Malino?
correct.
I just witnessed a truck come from that direction the other day when I was out there.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Turn on Malino or coming off of Malino?
They were coming off of Malino, turning onto Sequoia.
Give that man a gold star.
So I do know they use that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Say
would
corrected.
first apologize for the confusion that I've created, but I do understand that this is an issue of interest to the council. I would bring you back to the instant question and the matter on your agenda, which is just the question of the definition, without regard to enforcement in any of these beyond what exists in black and white or full color in the adopted transportation system plan, which means that even without the changes as proposed in the ordinance that will help to simplify the interpretation, enforcement could occur on these streets once posted.
Okay.
Okay.
Other questions right now or pieces? If not, I've got yellow cards.
Yeah.
Maybe things will become
Let's
clearer.
go.
as we hear
Yeah,
from testimony.
sounds good.
So we have a motion on the table and some conversation. So I have cards here from, so the first one is Kathleen Polly, and then Lisa Wygan after that. So thanks, Jennifer. Don't go far because we might need you back. So Kathleen, if you want to come up and make a comment, you have 3 minutes there. Microphone is on. Feel free to speak directly into it. How are you this evening?
I'm doing just fine.
Great.
Obviously, I didn't understand totally what was going on, and I apologize for that, but I do still have a couple of comments. I was really, I guess I was surprised when you mentioned the word 30, or the number 30, years in progress, or in the future. And what I'm looking at is 30 years in the past. The industrial park has been a part of Canby in process for over 30 years. And during that time, there's been a lot of change happening in Canby, and there's been a lot of need for that change that has to do with the industrial park. And my comment basically right now is that Sequoia Parkway is great. And what we originally did with Berg Parkway and 13th was before the city approved all of the different projects that are now making it not such a good idea to have trucks on it anymore. But I would also point out to the city, and maybe this isn't the right timing, but that right now, I can count in the last 2 years, including what's going on right now, and maybe I know a little more about a couple of the projects than you folks do, but there are 8 projects either just completed or in the process in the park right now. And I honestly don't believe that Sequoia Parkway is going to be enough to fully handle the traffic of trucks that is going to happen. I honestly think that having an ordinance like this is great, but it's not the only thing that needs to happen. You need to push forward on Ottaway or something like that, and you definitely need to have highway access, and it's not inside the city, but Haynes Road onto 99E right now without the trucks or with very few trucks is already dangerous and backs up, and people get really frustrated. And that actually used to be Highway 99E once upon a time.
Thank you, Kathleen, I appreciate it. Lisa. Hi, Lisa, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Good evening. I'm confused because the city of Canby made some commitments back when they applied for a URD loan to extend Berg Parkway and Sequoia. I have a letter here from Walt Daniels. This is a 2007 letter, and it's to Janet Hillcock, Oregon Economic and Community Development Department, Portland, Oregon. In there, it says Berg Parkway is a critical component to Canby's transportation plan and will improve access to residents and businesses alike. The Berg Parkway project was funded largely by ODOT because it is an important part of a long-range regional access plan between Highway 213 and I-5. It will improve access to neighborhoods, business areas, and the Pioneer Industrial Park. Walt Daniels, then council president. Then the staff report for the URD loan. You made commitments to American Steel for that Sequoia Parkway extension and the Berg Parkway extension. Under one, need and solution or opportunity, it says during the last year, the city of Canby was in the midst of planning for the next phase of infrastructure. American Steel, a carbon steel processor and distributor. On May 17th, American Steel submitted development plans to the city. Consequently, the public infrastructure project scope and costs have been updated to meet the company's needs. These improvements are critical to American Steel. South Berg Parkway extension is located south. It provides a connection through 13th Avenue to Highway 99E and represents a segment of the overall regional transportation access improvements between Canby and Interstate 5. Again, this is on your URD loan. The South Berg Parkway extension provides for the connection to Southwest 13th Avenue, a critical length from South Canby to Highway 99E. As Sequoia Parkway is extended in future phases, it will eventually connect with Southwest 13th Avenue and therefore add connectivity to the southern portion of the industrial area and another direct route to 99E. So I am confused that you had made commitments to these businesses and now you're backtracking to say that we're not going to allow trucks to go that way anymore when the vision was to have that connectivity, Berg Parkway, 13th Avenue, and Territorial, just go around in a circle outside the city limits.
I yield my time, Lisa.
Oh, I was talking so fast.
Just in time.
Buzz is ready to yield.
So I would be concerned that you're constricting and you're squeezing the industrial park when you don't have Plan B. Questions?
No, those are very valid points, and Rick, you look ready to...
I'd be happy to respond to it. Again, the ordinance doesn't restrict anything. It just provides the definitions necessary for enforcement anywhere within the city limits. I don't have those letters, and what I have to rely on is the official adopted transportation system plan for the city of Canby, which identifies and designates the truck routes within the city and is very specific which truck routes are included and which are excluded. I wasn't party to that conversation. Frankly, I had thought until very recently that 13th from Sequoia all the way to Berg Parkway was a truck route. And I learned subsequently when this issue was brought to the attention of the Traffic Safety Commission that in fact it was not. So what we're doing now and tonight really has nothing to do with this specific issue beyond my attempt to explain, because we knew that I didn't know until tonight, but we recognized that the comments were going to be specifically relating to 13th Avenue between Sequoia and South Ivy, and I needed to provide clarification relative to the fact that is not a designated truck route, and in order for it to become one, the city council would need to take specific action to change the transportation system plan to add that roadway into the adopted truck route for the city of Canby as a separate action. That's not on tonight's agenda. Tonight's agenda only speaks to definitions of what trucks and truck routes are.
The problem is that you specifically, when you took this loan out, told these businesses that this is what you're going to do, and you actually extended Sequoia Parkway to accommodate American Steel, and then added Berg extension to satisfy those businesses that they had a way to go, the way to get out to 99E. So there's a fine line there that I see.
I know that none of your council members were present back in 2007, but there was many discussions held along with the neighborhood association, and everything come into agreement that was everybody was happy. It was designated then to use it.
I think what he was trying to say, we had this discussion when the bridge went over to 13th, and there was the neighborhood uproar. And then they kind of compromised, saying, okay, we'll put the blinky, flashy, traffic lights up, and that will help the traffic calming things. We don't need any more speed bumps. We'll use and they've been working. They work for me, for sure. I go that way all the time. So I thought that was the end of it. And then 3 hours before this meeting is when I heard this discussion on 13th. So I was, again, confused.
Yeah, I do think you have two issues. One before you tonight is to just clarify a definition, and then perhaps you have the larger question of the future categorization of Southeast 13th Avenue between South Ivy and Sequoia.
It is.
I realize what the motion was. I do. But why was 13th brought up specifically tonight? I'm sure that it's on the first thing on our mind. So.
Well, it definitely was the trigger, and I had acknowledged that.
Those schools were there when all this discussion was done with the neighborhood association, and everybody was in agreement that was okay to use. And it's been there for 150 years to get to Canby.
Thank you.
Thank you, Buzz. Mr. Zimmer.
Good evening.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Thank you, Council.
Hi, Bob.
We've been here, like Buzz and Pat said. I've been on the Urban Renewal Advisory Board. Our property was one of the first pieces of property that Sequoia was extended down. We were kind of the gateway to a 500-acre industrial development, and these conversations that they just mentioned happened. And we had assurances that before we put all of our money into developing that industrial park and provided the urban renewal area that it is today, that this would happen. And everybody talked about it like, well, this is the bypass for Highway 99. When a truck comes in and they're loaded, they're going to go out that way if they're heading south and west, or they're going to go out the other way if they're heading north and east. We were assured of that. I think what you've got to do, like you mentioned, is we've got to change some of the embellishments on this issue. This change will allow the city to address concerns of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee and other concerned citizens with commercial vehicles or truck traffic utilizing Southeast 13th Avenue, not a designated truck route. It makes it sound like it's closed. Well, you've got a real problem on your hands. These assurances have been made by the city, and yes, employment changes, but this is still the city of Canby. And those assurances, I assure you, were made. We were in those meetings. So it's going to be interesting. Do you have any specific questions? I think you need to clean up the verbiage to leave the door open, like most people know that that's the truck route. The way this is written, it sounds like, oh no, we don't want trucks in there. That's schools and houses. Kind of makes you think about the old story of the people that jumped on board and bought the inexpensive land around the airport, built it up and said, you've got to move that airport. You've associated a little bit of the railroad right away through the middle of town. We got to kick the railroad out of there. Well, they were first. So it's going to be a tough one to do. Thank you.
Mr. Burden.
Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you this evening. My name is Charles Burden. I reside at 23230 South Highway 99E, Canby, Oregon. And this evening, I first of all wish to thank you for your service to the community. I appreciate each and every one of you and for your contribution to the community for us. You serve all of us, and I want you to know that as a community, we appreciate you folks very much. I very much appreciate what our other constituents have shared this evening. Regarding the industrial park, I have sent out these for your attention, and I just want to share with you, first of all, that the Canby had an industrial attraction plan. This was what we gave, what the city of Canby had developed to help bring businesses to us. Now, it is a complex and difficult issue for folks, but I would like to encourage you to remember, just as Mr. Zimmer and the Wygants and my sister Kathy Pauley has brought up, this was brought before our governmental bodies that we would be having 13th used as a passageway here. This is some of the documentation that shows that. Along with that, the OTAC, the Industrial Area Master Plan, done over 20 years ago, 1998. If you'll look carefully on the second page that I've given you, it's labeled page 10, you'll see the circulation plan addresses 4 major objectives set forth at the beginning of the project. This is the beginning of the project over 20 years ago, of course. The second provision here, it says, provide for a connection from the proposed industrial area to Southeast 13th Avenue. That's the plan that was developed for our city here. And this is what was represented to each of our companies that came, or our landowners, the people that sold the land to these people. This was the city of Canby's doing to get this put through to attract these people. These people have come and brought over, I believe, if my figures are correct, from Ms. Mengelberg when she was here serving, that we had over $74 million worth of investment by these corporations. And I'm sure with the new developments, it's far more than that. With that, they have brought their investment, just as Buzz has said, that we have American Steel. They have been given significant contributions to our community, and I know my time is short here. I would just like to share that I think that it would be very apropos because of the complexity of the issue and the very short notice. I just saw this in the newspaper today, just a few hours ago, and contacted people. I think that the corporations that are represented by the Canby Industrial Park Group, I think that they deserve from us an opportunity to be able to also have input to this. Much more than just a notification quickly in the newspaper just a few hours before the meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Charlie, I appreciate it.
Yes.
I would just point out to the council once again that this really isn't, while Southeast 13th Avenue and the connection between Sequoia and South Ivy was a trigger for the conversation, it's not the matter that's before you on this evening's agenda. The matter that's before you on this evening's agenda is just a clarification of the enforcement language itself, and it would apply anywhere in the city of Canby where trucks are driving in and on a road that is not a designated truck route. The enforcement could occur under any circumstances. This just provides additional clarity so that there's no ambiguity. And for the record, I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I simply am applying the rules and the standards that the city has formally adopted. I obviously wasn't a party to the conversations that happened in the 90s. We did have strong information presented by a resident of the subdivision immediately to the south of 13th Avenue, which contradicted some of the comments that were made this evening, and so I do agree that 13th Avenue in the area that's in question today certainly bears additional research. Traffic studies need to be done, additional work needs to be done, and ultimately a determination needs to be done whether it's in the best interest of all of the citizens of the community to classify this section as a truck route. But I do think that's a question for a different day.
Just for clarification, Rick, again, as you said, that the matter here this evening about cleaning up and tightening up this language, did this come out of just truck routes in general and truck traffic throughout town, or because of concern on Southeast 13th?
Well, it was initiated because of concern on Southeast 13th, and that precipitated conversation with the county. And Jennifer did an outstanding job in communicating with the county and determining where the county perceived weaknesses in our enforcement language for any infraction anywhere in the city that involved trucks operating in areas that are not designated truck routes. So it's an enforcement issue throughout the city. The genesis and the catalyst for bringing it to you was a complaint from a citizen on the south side of town that trucks should be prohibited because that, in her comments to the Traffic Safety Commission, that was the agreement between the City Council and the residents back when that subdivision was approved.
It seems, can I comment? So, I mean, can we like dig into this and get to the root of this? If we go back to the documentation, from the 90s or from the HOA resident there, I mean, we can get to the bottom of this, right? It's just going to take a while. I mean, I know tonight we're not voting on this, but down the road.
Well, the bottom of this right now today is your adopted plan. That's the bottom line today. You are obligated to operate under the plan adopted by the City Council and the Transportation System Plan adopted by the City Council. That's the bottom line. If there were promises, commitments, comments, recommendations, suggestions, they were not incorporated into this consultant-created and councilor-approved document that is our guiding document in identifying our current and future development of our transportation system within the city of Canby.
Okay. And when was that approved, by the way, the system, the TSP,
I have the latest update, let's see if I can find it, 2010.
10, oh. Okay.
Question or two, Brian?
Yes, Councilor Parker.
So if this is approved, Rick, could or would signs on 13th go up saying trucks not allowed?
Well, they could go up either way.
I understand. So
it may be more
we do have a
directed-
conflict. Let me try and shorten this discussion. So we do have a conflict. Let's assume for a moment that the testimony that presented here tonight is correct. Then we have a conflict between our TSP and promises made. And one solution to that would be to hold the public hearing and designate the 13th as a truck route in order to reconcile the two. All right, let me try this. Rick, is there anything that is pressing about this that we would need, is this exigent, or can we wait for this to be cleared up? I would like to have a staff report in front of me that affirms or clarifies the points that have been made by the citizens here. I only came on the council 8 years ago, but one of the things that I was very keen on doing was honoring the promises made with the property owners involved with the urban renewal district. They've been very supportive of us, and I want to hold that faith. So unless there is a reason that we absolutely need to take action on this, I would propose that we defer until we can clean up this whole thing, because I think there's a cloud over this that, even though it's not directly a 13th issue, I would like to get that clarified before we move ahead on something like this, just because of the public perception. Does that make sense, Mayor? Did I say that in a way that anybody other than me sort of understood that?
Yeah.
No, I think you've unpacked the two issues. Rick,
Well, I would, yeah, this is not going to matter one way or another, except going back to your library discussion, you have a recommendation from the Traffic Safety Commission to make these changes, and which you can accept or you can reject. That's within your power. The commission and your committees make recommendations, and you have the power to either accept them or reject them. Going beyond that, I think you would need to take one further step if you want to not enforce the truck ban on 13th, and that is to direct staff from the dais tonight to not enforce until there is a complete resolution of the appropriateness of establishing 13th Avenue as a truck route, because you're leaving. The obvious question is whether 13th should be a truck route, and it's in point of fact has absolutely no bearing on what you're doing tonight, but it doesn't matter one way or another whether you approve it. So the response to Councilor Parker doesn't really matter. You can approve it or not approve it. The big question is, do we enforce the truck ban on 13th, which currently exists now?
And then let me see if this advances the discussion. Has it been our practice to enforce it?
It has not been until, and we have held off pending conversations with the county to determine jurisdictional boundaries, which have been kind of a significant question, because a portion of this was in the county until very recently, a portion was in the city, and we still have some jurisdictional questions, but have resolved those questions. So up until now, a portion of it we didn't have the authority to enforce. Up until very recently, that's the collective, we, the city, me, Public Works, and the Sheriff's Department thought that this was in fact a truck route, until it was brought to our attention, appropriately so, that in fact it's not. And so once it was brought to our attention that trucks were operating in violation of our transportation system plan, then we felt an obligation to get to the bottom of this and to enforce our laws and rules as they are currently written. Now, if you wish us to not enforce the laws and rules, I think it's appropriate for you to affirmatively tell us not to do that.
Mayor, thank you, Rick. That's clear. So here's what I would posit to the council. I do not like the language of do not enforce the rules.
Suspend.
But I am comfortable recommending to the council a direction to city administration for us to continue our current practice pending further research.
That is a worthwhile conversation piece, and I'm watching our city attorney jump out of his skin through some of this dialogue. Joe?
Well, the onus really is on truck drivers to know truck routes and to look for signage that says truck route and to follow the truck routes. Our police are there to enforce when they don't, but this is really a matter of anybody driving what's defined as a truck through Canby should know this well and follow it. So that's my 2 cents. The onus is on them. They should follow the law.
It's an interesting comment, because today, as I was coming from downtown, watched the semi coming north on South Ivy swing over to the right lane so that they could take a left from South Ivy there by 7-Eleven and go wide enough to go left on 99. And it happens often, and makes me just want to I just want to go and show them the way, because I've watched even trucks off 99 try to make a right turn on South Ivy. And as I sit there and watch the other truck, this is 2 weeks ago, I don't think there is a sign on 99 right there at the intersection that says truck route, like with an arrow or whatever. I mean, there's some issues here, and I think what we're trying to do is it's cleaning up language for all of Canby, as you were saying, Councilor Parker, and then it gets the suggestion maybe to continue our current practice on 13th until which is to not enforce the truck route piece on 13th. Makes me a little squeamish, but this needs to be resolved, because I remember, I'm sitting here with Council President Dale. I remember having conversations, and I remember going to HOA meetings at Tofty, and there being aggravation over the fact that realtors didn't tell them that they were buying a home along a truck route, when in reality, it's not a truck route.
Right.
But that's what it's always been discussed as, a truck route. I'm having a really hard time with where this piece is currently at in our puzzle. Because to Ms. Wygant's point about the pieces that we've, for years, the documentation and pieces about that being a truck route. So whatever we do this evening as a council, approve these changes, I want to come back and visit this piece quickly. Because right now, as it stands, Ms. Polly made the comment about, where are we punching out from in the industrial park? And we are working on, that is a big project that we are working on. And I think, your brother is aware of what we're trying to get accomplished punching out of the industrial park to 99, which would alleviate this, but for the time being, we don't have that yet. My 2 cents. So.
One point of clarification, please. I'm not sure that you have really a vision of the size of 2 of the projects.
I am aware of of the projects that are being discussed.
The
Very
mayor's
much
the
so.
only one. The rest of us have not been read it.
So I am very much aware. Staff is very much aware as well. I mean, they're in the conversation pieces with those companies right now. So.
To sum up, it seems like what this ordinance is us correcting publicly a mistake we've made for many, many years. Like, yeah, well, it's.
We're not changing 13th.
But we're basically putting signs saying this isn't a truck route. We screwed up. We thought it was a truck route. It's not. That's right. That's what we're doing, is putting signs up saying it's not a truck route. Sorry, guys. But we're doing it, through this ordinance. And it's kind of sticky because you were saying, Joe, that it's the truck drivers, the onus is on them to know the truck route, but the onus is on us to know our own darn truck route too. And now we do. And this is sticky. Sarah was going to talk.
Sarah.
I think a couple of things. I don't like ambiguous ordinances. I think if we're going to have an ordinance, it should be clear, it should be enforceable, or it shouldn't exist at all. So in terms of the actual language in the ordinance for how we handle non-truck routes, I'm okay with that language. I take issue, like the constituents and the rest of council, with what would happen on 13th. I think I've mentioned before, if 13th isn't a truck route, I'm not sure why we built Sequoia Parkway overpass. Like that's from my perspective, the only reason that would have been built or exist was with the intent for trucks to use 13th. I'm not sure why Southeast 13th or Southwest 13th is a truck route if there's no way to get the trucks from there to the industrial park. Otherwise, they could just stay on 99 and Ivy. Like, none of the rest of it makes sense if Southeast 13th is not intended to be used for trucks. So I'm okay with the language in the ordinance. I think that I don't like having unambiguous ordinances. I think we should move forward with the language, but I think that we should take exception with 13th until we address the issue, resolve the problem, and figure out the resolution that's going to make the industrial park usable and is going to make sense for, frankly, if Southwest 13th isn't a truck route, I'm not sure why Southeast 13th is, because it's functionally a dead end truck route. So so I think that there's a bigger conversation to be had about that as far as the ordinance and the language goes and how we enforce trucks on non-truck routes. I'm okay with it. I just want to make sure that we handle 13th in a manner that allows us to address the larger problem before we start enforcing something we've never enforced.
Yeah, we can, you put me in a really awkward ethical position here. I think that I do think the ordinance is appropriate. And I don't see any reason that this council or the community would benefit from delaying the adoption of the changes. They're technical in nature. They provide clarification. They're better than what we have today for the casual reader of our city code. There is a larger question of where we go in the future on Southeast 13th Avenue. And I think that is hugely relevant to the long-term growth. And I freely admit that I erred in believing, until it was brought to my attention, that in believing that this in fact was a truck route. And so we're trying to follow our own rules. We're trying to do them in an ethical and fair way, both to the property owners in the industrial park and businesses in the industrial park and the residents in the community. I think that maybe there's an opportunity to take a soft approach, maybe issue warnings instead of citations, until we're able to resolve this once and for all, so that nobody's getting cited and the trucks for a short period of time. Probably, because this will be a notice public hearing, we'll undoubtedly have community members, maybe school board members, maybe others that will want to come and testify as well. So it's an issue that we'll probably bring in January, but I think that administratively, working with Jennifer, we can find, and with the Traffic Safety Commission, we can find a way to continue the current practice in a modified fashion, issuing warnings instead of citations, and moving traffic to the best of our ability off of 13th until we've had an opportunity for the council to act at a policy level on the future delineation of this corridor as either a truck route or not a truck route.
Oh, and I should say, because part of 13th Avenue is not in our jurisdiction.
Right.
We can't really speak to whether or not the sheriff will send deputies to enforce. They haven't heretofore. But I mean, that is why I would reiterate that it's always in the truck driver's best interest to know your truck routes and to follow them, because we can make promises as to what our jurisdiction says, but there's a piece of 13th that is not in our jurisdiction. They're not going to enforce it if there's not signs up, as a practical matter. So if we don't put signage up, that probably won't be a problem.
Mr. Mayor, one more thought is that really the thing is that it doesn't matter how we vote on this ordinance. It doesn't change the fact that if at the moment someone could get ticketed for driving a truck on 13th. I mean, we can't resolve that problem tonight. So I just wanted to point that out, that no matter what we do, nothing is going to change tonight on whether or not 13th is or is not a truck route. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that they were heard, that we agree that there's an issue, that it needs to be resolved. We can't resolve that tonight because it's not on the agenda. It requires a public hearing. There's, a number of issues related to that. But thank you for coming and bringing testimony about the issues related to it.
I was just saying I support the ordinance as it is because it's just cleaning up language, and I would like to see the 13th issue on a very near future agenda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Rick, you raise a good point that we are in a difficult situation here, but if we find that we are not enforcing a law that we should be enforcing, then we need to enforce the law. But from a policy standpoint, if it's not the law that we want, then we need to change that. So I withdraw my suggestion about following practices. The city administration needs to follow the rules and not let us get in the way of administration.
And it is a good ordinance. It's a clean ordinance. I think Rick said it maybe once, but just as a reminder, regardless of what we do with 13th in the end, I don't envision this ordinance changing one word. Whether it's passed tonight or later, this ordinance won't change. It's just clarification. Policy is a different issue about enforcement. The future of 13th is a different issue.
Any further conversation?
I think we beat it up.
I'll make a motion.
We already have one.
Oh, that's right, like 20 minutes ago.
We're in the discussion part.
Okay.
Now we just want to call for a vote.
So question's been called. All those in favor of approving ordinance 1497, amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 10.04 of the City Traffic Code, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Word abstention? Going nay? Okay.
Comes up for second reading next month anyway.
Motion passes 5-1. Okay, thank you all for the conversation. Thank you all. Next ordinance.
I just want to let the council know, I sent you the minutes from the December 8th special meeting in 2010 where a public hearing was held regarding this, and it was discussed extensively, so you have that for background.
It was a very vigorous discussion.
That's currently in our inbox.
Yes.
You just
Thank
emailed
you.
it? Okay.
The next item we have is ordinance 1498. This is amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 2.40.030 and 2.40.040 regarding the public library.
Thank you, Kim. And Irene.
Currently, the Canby Library Board consists of 5 members, but according to the intergovernmental agreement that we have with Clackamas County, we're supposed to have representation from the unincorporated residents. We've been unable to find people to fill those positions at one point in time, but since it's part of the IGA that we offer fair representation, which according to our the formula that would be, it would be 2 additional members. So we would like to increase the library board from 5 members to 7 members with the stipulation that these 2 members would be from the unincorporated area, and then those positions would remain vacant until those positions are full. And basically what we're trying to do is do a good faith effort to try to adhere to the intent of the IGA.
Is this, in terms of just quorum pieces for the board, is that, with having those 2 empty, does that play into that at all?
At this point in time now, we still have this, would be the regular quorum that we would have. If we would fill one of those positions, I would assume that the quorum then would be 4 members.
And we're also adding a high school.
But also, yes, I'd like to add a position for the high school representation. I know that's been done on the Historic Landmark Commission, that they were doing it also, and we thought it's a really good opportunity, especially with going on with the teens in the libraries, to try to get involvement with them and to see what their viewpoint is of where the library wants to go to. That position, however, would be a non-voting member, and it would end upon graduation from high school, because we expect a turnover more so from that group.
And that would be by appointment by the council, just like any other member. Okay. And thank you, Irene, for not restricting it to a Canby High School student necessarily. I appreciate that.
I have a question about the quorum thing, though. So once you bump it up to 7 voting members, I mean, it has 4 people will have to be present for the quorum. But in the interim, you mean until you've filled the position, the quorum just stays? So you're not required immediately to have 4?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the intent.
Okay.
Is
to reflect the actual...
Yeah, those positions will remain vacant, and everything would remain the same.
Okay.
That wouldn't be my understanding of a quorum, but we can talk offline about that.
I was wondering that, too, but we can deal with that.
Yeah.
Okay, the tiny, kinky, hinky question for Joe, because you know, you and I spend hours on phone talking about stuff like this. Person lives just outside the city limits. They're a member of the board.
Yeah.
Oh, they get annexed.
Oh, yeah.
You okay with that?
It would be a question for you guys, because you guys really determine, people who are on and at what capacity.
I mean, they're already sitting on the board.
Yeah.
I don't want to kick them off.
Well, and I would think that
Or be
whatever.
compelled to.
I mean, this is kind of a spirit of thing in a way, right? Because you're trying to incorporate people who are close by, but not necessarily. But yeah.
That's all I wanted to hear you say is.
Okay.
We're not compelled to.
I think the practice would be to leave them on until they've completed their appointed term.
Very good.
And then if there's a vacancy in the classification, which they
can move seats.
Yeah, then they could move.
I think the intent is still be there. We should good faith effort to try to fill those positions.
Right. And it is really great to include a student, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that some of our committees are doing that, so it's very forward-thinking, Irene. It's good. Yeah, good.
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
Oh, wait, I just lost it. Maybe I won't. Hold on. Sorry. There it is. I move to approve Ordinance 1498, an ordinance amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 2.20.030 and 2.20.040 regarding the public library to come up for second reading on December 5th, 2018.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Spoon and seconded by Councilor Height to approve ordinance 1498, an ordinance amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 2.20.030 and 2.20.040 regarding the public library. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0. Thank you, Irene. Coming up for new business, we have findings, conclusions, and final order for annexation 18-03 and zone change 18-03, the Icon construction piece on North Pine.
And that just coincides with the, I believe, isn't it, the ordinance that you just passed at second reading?
All right, I move that we adopt the findings, conclusions, and final order ANN 1803, zone change 1803, Icon Construction.
Motion's been made by Counselor Height and seconded by Counselor Hensley to approve the final findings, conclusions, and final order for annexation 18-03/zone change 18-03, the Icon Construction piece. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0. Next on the agenda for new business is the cancellation of the November 21st City Council meeting. That Wednesday falls right before Thanksgiving. And actually, this is the earliest Thanksgiving since 1940-something. So just a little trivia for you. I thank my dad for that one. So, Kim, currently nothing's on the agenda, but I'm sure you and I could create one if everyone wants to meet.
There is currently nothing on the agenda for a meeting.
But you and I could create one.
Possibly.
Okay.
That quorum issue might come up.
So am I seeing through head nods that, you know?
Just fine.
Okay, so I think we, is it, Kim, I always forget on this part, do we have to have an official motion to,
If I could just have consensus.
it looks like you have consensus that we will be not having the 21st of November meeting. City Administrator's Business and Staff Reports, Mr. Robinson.
Yes, just one matter before you, that I'd like to bring before you this evening. When I was offered this position in 2014 by many of you sitting on the council this evening, I had shared with you that I'd like to put in at least 3 years and hopefully 5 years in support of the city of Canby, working with you to hopefully facilitate some positive outcomes. I am tonight letting you know that I will be leaving at the end of October 2019, so about 11 and a half months from now. The 4 years that I've spent here have been outstanding, wonderful growth opportunities for me when I thought maybe I was too old to grow, and I learned differently. And I want to express my appreciation to each of you as I've developed relationships with all of you in over the past several years, and let you know that I'm looking forward to the last year of my tenure here, and will be leaving you end of October. I'll be 66 years old and old, gray, and I think perhaps tired. So I do thank all of you for your support over the years, and look forward to the next year.
Yeah, 66 is an awfully old time, so it's about time to be moving along.
Good time to go to Spain.
And we'll have lots, I'm sure, to say later.
Lots of time to talk about how much we love him.
I know. Rick and I exchanged some words today, and I told him we had a meeting slated for Wednesday or Friday, and it's a holiday weekend, and hey, can we change our meeting time? And he said, oh, by the way, I'd like to bring this tonight to the council. And I told him, yes, we can change our meeting. No, you can't bring this forward. I won't accept it. And so, but
I told him I didn't
there'll be more of that. But
Well, in fairness, I need to share the rest of the story. The mayor
trying to protect the innocent here.
The mayor has already scheduled a meeting with you to begin discussions about my successor. So I figured I better submit my retirement notice before you held your
Body's not even cold yet.
So awkward.
Thanks, Rick. See ya.
Yeah.
No.
Love you. Bye.
We're gonna miss you. No, yeah. Well, like I said, there's been lots of conversation already, and we've squeezed 2 more years out of them than I thought we would get, and so enough on that for now. But thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Any for citizen input this evening? If anybody wants to run up and address the council, okay. Not seeing anyone racing towards us. Kim, action review.
Just a reminder that the work session on the 5th is at 5:30. We were doing it a half hour early.
Yes. Thanks, Kim.
Action review, you've approved the consent agenda, you've adopted ordinance 1496, and you've approved ordinances 1497 and 1498 to come up for second reading on December 5th. You've adopted the findings, conclusions, and final order for ANN 1803, ZC 1803, Icon Construction. And that's it.
Thank you, Kim. Joe, exec session this evening?
No, there is not.
I didn't think so. Good job. Before I make, or there's a motion to adjourn, Councilor Parker has shared with me that this will be good for all of you out in TV land, that there is going to be rock scalers removing rocks along 99E between here and Oregon City, starting at 5 a.m. on Saturday and ending at 5 p.m. on Sunday. So it'll be totally shut down, so there will be detours around that area. So spread it far and wide, and let people know that that will be shut down and you won't be able to get through. So thank you for the quick grab there, Councilor Parker. Appreciate that.
It'll be a big change for some people.
It will be a big change. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Canby, good night.